Hello, everybody. This is Nanette Kennedy with the Evolution, Revolution, and Humanities team, and we are reading Friendship with God. I'm not sure what chapter we're on, but Linda will tell us when we get to that point. And Shabana is going to start us off in a meditation, and you might want to couch for those listening in what this meditation is about. You're on mute.
Well, we've all been together for all this time, and I think it's quite important for Linda to be happy because she does do the reading. And so I'm just going to ask if we can do something a little bit different. Is that she needs someone to clean her cabins because this is really a busy season. And this woman who showed up, she needs the job. Linda needs the work done. So if we could just pray that for the sake of our group and for all of humanity, that the people involved make sensible decisions so that the world can spin a little more smoothly and a little happier. Whatever source decides to do about it, it's not our problem, but we do have the good intention. If that's okay with everyone. Okay, so Almighty God, we all love Linda, and we're eager for her to get that work, have nice homes, nice clean cabins. So please fix this for her, whatever way you decide, and accept our meditation, which is really a request that everyone involved use their free will for a productive and mutually beneficial purpose. Amen.
Beautiful.
Thank you, Shabana. And now, Linda and group, I think we discussed last week about discussing this previous chapter.
Mm-hmm.
Have we changed our minds, or is that what we still want to do?
Yeah, so we're on chapter 9 if we were to start reading, and chapter 8 is the one that we just finished.
Did everybody watch the replay? Or I watched the replay. It's good.
Yeah, I did not. I've had a really busy week. But if anybody wants to bring anything up from last week's reading.
I think a discussion.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that, Shabana. Is it my computer or is Shabana breaking up?
No, Shabana's breaking up.
Breaking up.
Hey, Shabana, why don't you try turning off your video because you're breaking up.
We could discuss the last chapter because it's
She can't hear you now. She can't hear you.
You mean, yeah.
Okay, I've turned off my video. Is it any better?
Much.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so who
So
wants
what
to?
were you saying?
I think she wants to do the discussion.
Right.
So, who would like to start?
You have to be like brief. Can we have an overview of it? Because I forget, you know. Is there anybody that can do like a synopsis or like a cliff notes? A paragraph? That may be too difficult. I don't know.
Well, this was a really long chapter.
I don't know.
Yes, it was. Well, here's this one section that was underlined by, well, according to my book, like 65 people have underlined this section. It's looks to be on page 173. And God is saying, Neil says, yes, but how do I do that? And God says, live your life for a new reason. Understand that its purpose has nothing to do with what you get out of it and everything to do with what you put into it. This is also true of relationships. I think that that's for most people a really hard point of focus, because we get so distracted into thinking that what we see and what's in this external world is what's real. And the only thing that's really real is ourselves and our response to whatever it is we're experiencing.
True.
So I agree with why that's highlighted.
Can you read the first sentence of that paragraph again? I just now found the page.
Sure. Live your life for a new reason. Understand that its purpose has nothing to do with what you get out of it and everything to do with what you put into it. This is also true of relationships.
And God also says that your life is not about you. It's about all those whose life you touch.
Yeah, I agree with that. I remember agreeing with that. Yeah, he said that in other books as well, hasn't he?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then on page 169, there's another highlighted section that says, when you love someone, you grant them total freedom to be who they are.
Yeah.
For this is the greatest gift you could give them, and love always gives the greatest gift.
It's true. Love is the greatest gift. Most powerful one.
Well, and that's why, you know, the ultimate challenge here is for us to love everyone.
Exactly.
Everyone. And
Yep.
so when you think of that quote and then think of people that are challenging to you, whether it's, you know, a personal person or somebody at the high level, like, you know, like Trump.
Right. I knew you were going to say.
I think it's hard when we're dealing like with children or people that are close to us, because to give them total freedom to be who they are means, you know, that we have to give up, like Neil talks about, the expectations and the requirements.
Yeah.
That our happiness with that person doesn't have anything to do with those things. You know, that the love is something separate from what people are doing.
You're hung up on fear, jealousy. What's the three? Fear, jealousy. There's a third. The third one he talks about in this book or other books. Fear,
Expectation.
expectations. Thank you, Shavana.
You're welcome. I'm big on those.
Good. Yippee.
Last night, my youngest son and his girlfriend came over and we did a barbecue cookout thing, and then my daughter's boyfriend, who also lives here with my daughter, had a couple of his friends over, and I did this thing right before the meal, before preparing the meal. Should I make this much or should I make that much? You know, and it was like I was raised in a family where there were 8 or 9 of us always at the dinner table. And my mom was one of those people who always wanted to have enough if somebody popped in. You know, that it wasn't just one serving exactly for everybody. And so I had marinated this steak, and I had another one in my refrigerator. And I thought, you know what? I'd rather have leftovers than to have somebody not be able to have enough to eat. But anyway, I was telling that story to all these people that were here. And I said, so there's plenty for everybody to eat. And some of these people were probably in their mid to late 20s, including my son and his girlfriend. But this one young man that I did not know before yesterday said, you put off this really inviting energy. And he says, what's one of the things that help you to do that? And I talked about unconditional love and trying to stay out of judgment. And believe me, I'm not perfect. But he said, well, what do you do for a living? And I told him I worked with Humanities Team and Evolution Revolution. And I said, in short, we're just trying to figure out how to all get along, how we can be better so that we can help others around us. And he said, well, I'm interested in that. And I thought, well, who knew at this dinner party that this conversation would come up? And I didn't, you know, I wasn't advertising. And I talked about how powerful this chapter in the Conversations with, or Friendship with God book is. And I said, you know, go out and pick one up, buy a used one, whatever. You know, and it's not about making somebody else wrong. It's about just talking about it. And this past week, we had on Neil's Facebook page, we had these advertisements for this upcoming course, Mastery of Life, taught by Neil Don Walsh. And you would be amazed at how many people...
Negative comments? I saw those.
Negative comments. I went in there... Yeah. I went in there on Friday and just tried to be real light, not attacking or anything, and just say, you know, ours is not the only way. It's merely another way.
Right, which is what we advertise anyway.
Right. And so, but there were so many people, and I really thought about those comments a lot, because there were comments like, the only way you can get to God is through his son.
He said he was a charlatan. One of them said he was a charlatan.
Yeah.
Did you read that?
Yeah.
Charlatan. Yeah.
So it was a really...
They're just operating out of fear.
Yeah. And, you know, and I didn't want to say that, because that seems like I'm making a judgment on them. but it really gave me a lot of cause for thought, because I don't see a lot of those kind of comments. And so when you do see those comments,
Yeah.
it's like,
In between.
oh, I can't stand confrontation. I really don't care for it. And anyway, I'm just going on here, and I just wanted to share that.
What was done with it, and what happened?
I just wrote back to people.
Did somebody respond to the comments?
I haven't gone back to look.
They just left them there.
Yeah.
No, that's just better, just to leave it. You know.
Well,
because if you comment, you're kind of condoning. I mean, I don't know. It's I don't know. It's a call, I guess, you have to make.
Yep. And Steve Farrell wanted somebody to go in there and just say, you know,
knock it off.
Kind responses, you know.
Steve, knock it off.
Yeah, really. So
I don't think so. Say that. I know I wouldn't say that.
Yep.
Yeah. Difficult times. Difficult managing all this, you know. And now that I'm helping doing that, it's difficult. You have to assign more to your day, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So, not easy task.
Yep.
Can I share something with you guys?
I didn't hear what you said, Nanette, when you said that Steve Farrell said something. I couldn't hear it.
He wanted me to go in and make nice comments back to the people on Neil's page.
Mm-hmm.
You know, give him information if I needed to give him information. But he just wanted somebody to go in there and say, you know, we appreciate Neil's teaching, and that it may not appeal to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because I don't think anybody was saying. And I guess what surprises me, if you're not into Neil, why are you on his page?
Exactly. That's what I was thinking. I left the page. I read them all because it was so negative. I was like, wow, why are these people even here? Because they want to say that he's a bad person.
Yep, and that it
was bashing, hate bashing.
Yeah, blasphemous, and this, that, and the other thing. I was just like, I don't hang out on pages that I don't agree with, you know. It doesn't mean I will see something in my feed that I don't agree with, but I just don't respond.
Right, just pass it.
So you wanted to say something, Kristen?
Yeah, I was thinking about this last couple of days. And how important this book group is to me. My mother, in the 70s, went on living on the horse farm in the 70s. We moved up from Connecticut in 1973. And she was we weren't stuck on the farm, but I mean, it was a great time. My growing up my formative years were all on the horse farm near here in Guilford. But she just got so lonely. I mean, she was involved with the roses and her garden and the horses, and it was big, you know. I mean, I was, you know, a city kid, so I was coming up there. I was 5 years old when we moved up, and I was like, there was nobody around. It was all like, you know, farmers and dairy. We converted a dairy farm into a horse farm, and we had a whole bunch of horses and all other things, not just horses, dogs, everybody, all the same. And just, I was kind of like culture shocked because I was from New Haven, Connecticut, around there, and that was a huge shock. So it took me a while to get used to that. But when my mother finally we moved off the farm in 1978, so 73 to 78, she, shortly before that, here in Brattleboro, and it's funny because the Beehive is there. It's this new group that I'm doing, and it's at that same building. I can't believe it. So this is in 70, I don't know. She joined that book group in 77 or 76, 1976. So she had cars in, because her boyfriend that bought the whole horse farm was a car dealer from Connecticut. That's why we moved up from Bridgeport. But we live in Bridgeport, but he was there. So he bought this whole huge horse. He was a big horse guy. That's a long story too. But he finally got the courage to go off the farm. That's what I wrote. Joining this book group, this women's book group, it was just women's, and it was a women's center here in Brattleboro where I live now. And you know, she's a big reader, you know, huge reader, and she was a high school teacher for a while before she became a social worker. But that book group, and she did a hotline. She did the women's hotline then in the 70s, like a shelter. And if you had an emergency, it was a battered women's place too. So it was an emergency place. There was a bed there. So she'd have to work the hotline, you know, for people in town who had the women that were struggling and having a hard time. So she did that. She's a volunteer job, but she said that gave her the strength because something was happening that was very badly that I don't want to talk about right now. That gave her the strength, that human connection. We didn't have any human connection there. It was me and mom for all them years. I mean, of course we had neighbors, but they were far away. We were isolated most of the time. In the winters, they were horrible. You can imagine. But this, she said years later, this book group gave her strength. And it was a book group. They read a book every week and then they'd come back and make notes and talk about it. But it was at the Women's Center because it was where women united. And it was beautiful. And I look at this as that this is a great thing for me as well. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing.
May I make a comment about the book group for me?
Yes.
This is along what Kirsten just said. These insights, you know, about Kirsten wanted to know what the love killers were, and I piped in, yep, it's expectation. I'm big on that one. That's what I've been using to kill love in my life, you know, big time. So as far as I can tell, this is the source of my judgment about President Trump. If I had more respect for him as a representation of God, if I could see him as holy and worthy of the love of all the people who voted for him, and if I were to look at the fact that the Koreas are now talking, I mean, the evidence is quite impressive. And the fact that he was elected, I think the cracks in the world might heal if my judgment and expectation were toned down or eliminated anyway. I don't want to get too ambitious.
And I think too, with what you just said, Siobhan, and I try to live without expectation. And, you know, I don't do it every day. I don't have it down to a fine art. But I can tell you that living without expectation, if something goes a different way than you'd anticipated, you don't get your feathers so ruffled. It's like, I guess it wasn't supposed to happen that way. You know? But thanks for sharing that, Siobhan.
Everything's always in divine order. Whether we like it or not.
Yeah, so might as well just embrace it as best we can.
Well, Canadians are about as self-righteous as they could be because we truly believe we're better than the Americans. And I mean, we're big on that. We pretend like we aren't. You know, we hide it. But no one's fooled. And lately, the feedback on some of our media is basically saying, why don't you just get with it and see that America is just as great as it ever was, and that we're just as self-righteous as we ever were, so let's look within first. You know, it's very disappointing, of course, but I guess I might do it.
Well, that's interesting that the media would bring that up.
They never would. They'd never bring it up. It was letters sent in. The media is really in a rut. It's the people who write in and they don't have a choice but to read the stuff, read the letters. So we're all sort of cornered.
Is there time for a sharing, or do we need to move on?
No, you can go ahead and share.
Okay. I guess I come from a different perspective. I studied with a teacher for 15 years that always taught us that we created our world. And it was a tough lesson. But personally, I like living like that because then I don't feel I'm a victim. I feel I have a choice to be responsible for what I am creating in myself and in others. I guess it's a surrender to what is, not in a victim way, but surrender to always doing the best I can and then leaving the rest to God, the outcome. And I'm not saying I do that, but that's my focus, I guess I'd say. And I find it very powerful to, in my own heart and soul, and then as I see the opportunity to heal my daughter-mother relationship, my son-mother, my son-in-law, mother-in-law relationship, and outward to the stepchildren, and in my own personal world to be able to feel I'm not there to please other people. I'm there to be as truthful about what I'm actually creating as I can be with love. And with Trump, I think for me, the big thing I feel my big gift is personally is my teacher taught me to see the Hitler in myself way back in the 70s. And that was horrific. But gradually I saw the truth of what he was trying to say, that we're all one, and that if we see a Hitler out there, the positive thing he was suggesting we choose is to find that aspect in ourselves and work on that part, because we have the power to change that. I guess it gives me a lot of peace. From the time Trump was nominated and elected, people were just frantic, and I understood it, but I never felt the fear or the being frantic. I just felt I don't have a word for it. I felt confident that the best was going to happen and that I wasn't in charge of it other than doing the best I could with love and opening my heart more to my, as you so often say, the judgments, the criticism, the pointing the finger outward. I think I'm at the end.
Thank you, Joyce. Can you hear me now? You can still not hear me?
We can hear you.
Ah, because I took the earphones. Good.
Yeah, that's what it is. Maybe you don't have a mic on your laptop or computer.
Yeah. It has worked, always worked before, but I tried it now, so something went wrong. Okay, so I can share something short. Yeah, because I think that what Neil is inspiring me about is to connect to me, to the divine, to the source from within, and feel the oneness from within, and then I can be present. And that has been my life journey for many, many, many years in different ways.
And one of the things that came up in my own meditation a long time ago was actually the same about Hitler. If I look at Hitler, if he would have been my son, how would I have been towards him? And if he is, we cannot deny anyone coming from the same source. Who could come from somewhere else? So it's to connect to that source towards others. And I feel that I listened to Neil the other day when he had a talk about this training that he's going to have. And it ended up so beautifully, because it is just that to come from that source inside ourselves, that's the best thing we can give to this world today, to each other. And I feel that when I am with I have 8 grandchildren, and I can feel that when I am coming from that part, they love to meet me, to talk to me, to share and to listen, and not discuss what they should do or whatever. It's to take away all judgment just coming from that. So for me, that is, and I can understand you have Trump. I don't have a Trump in Sweden. But I can understand that it is, I mean, it's not so easy. I'm with you. So if we have that, I mean, what can we do in this time of civilization if we cannot come, as I maybe mentioned before, that I wrote something called Unconditional Oneness. It came through me in summertime. And that is fundamental to unconditional love to exist. If we cannot connect to the unconditional oneness, we cannot feel that connection. But who is not part of that? Is there anyone, no matter who it is, who is not coming from that source, as we are all? So if we connect there, I think that's what Neil helps me to stimulate, to acknowledge and to nurture that part in me, which is the only thing I live for today. I am not so young, you see. So what should I do for the rest of my life if not nurturing that part in me? I have no other interest. And I love the last chapter we read. I don't remember now, but there were so many things that said yes, 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 yes in me. It was beautiful. So it's wonderful to be with you in this group. So thank you.
Thank you. And you know, I'm really kind of glad we're doing this a little bit differently today, because when you bring up Hitler, before I read Conversations with God, Book 1, I would have just said, you know, Hitler is one of those few people. I don't even know how I thought about it, except for that he was the devil incarnate. And when I read the line in Conversations with God, and God says to Neil, Hitler's in heaven. And I was like, what? I just couldn't believe. And that's 20 years ago now. And now I can't believe I used to think the way I thought prior to understanding that. This comes from one of those comments I was talking about on Neil's page. And somebody wrote, we are all one. And then somebody responded to we are all one and said, we are not all God's children. And I was like, I'm not going to get in a match with that person. And being while you were speaking, I was thinking about one of the reasons that a group like this exists is we all have hope. We don't ever get rid of the hope. Even when things may seem hopeless. And I think that's what makes us be able to go forward, is that, you know what, you don't have to, there's many paths to the mountaintop. You don't have to believe as I believe. Over.
You know, I think that spirit all the world's a stage and all the men and women merely players is a piece of brilliance that gets overlooked, because if you take Neil's teachings and then you add that to it, it becomes very clear that absolutely everybody that comes into form, it's like, it really is like, this is a stage, this is a play, and we all have our roles, and we come into form in our roles to act out the play that we're participating in. And some people are playing they're like in a different play. Like Hitler, he was in a different play than a lot of other people. He saw a different stage that he was on, and he was doing different things. But same thing with Trump and Russia, and just to go back to whoever it was that said he got elected, no, he ended up in being inaugurated. I will never agree that he was elected, because there was some kind of manipulation to this last process. But in any case, for me, just remembering always that this is a stage, and that each one of us came in with a choice, with a decision, with a plan, whether we realize it or not. I mean, I was aware of my plan. Everybody else I talked to when I got here, nobody else knew they had a plan. That's how I got labeled a lamp, because I was the only one that seemed to know that, hey, we all came here to do something. What are you here to do? And no one had an answer for me. But, that's really it. It's because ultimately, when you crank quantum physics into what we're doing here, you realize there's nothing out here. Like, I think I'm sitting in a chair, but the truth of the matter is, whatever this is I'm sitting on is an illusion, because everything is more space than matter. Everything is moving. There is nothing stable. There's nothing stationary. Well, the chair sure looks stationary and it sure looks solid, but it isn't. And so to me, when we're dealing with these people in these challenging moments, you just come within, and it's like, okay, who am I? And where is my heart? And where is the love? And how do I move forward? That's where I see actually all of us, and I see so many in this movement of awakened beings that are on the planet now, that are building the new world. I'm done. I'm complete. I got lost. I don't even know where I am in this conversation. Thank you for letting me share.
That's because you're a bunch of molecules moving all over the place. I don't even know where it is, but I've written several things about oneness, mostly poetry. And one of the things I always think of is that most of us, and I'd like to think that all of us, have an inner instinct, and that's to protect our family of human beings. Or it's instinct to try to kill a family of ducks crossing the road. It's instinct if a child falls into a pool. You don't take the time to think about it. It's what's inside of us. And I like to think that most people on this planet are that way. And if they're not, Neil has this statement that says, people react to the world as they see it. And so if they're living in fear or judgment or whatever, they may not react that way that I want to believe everybody has that. I'm going to go help that person, or I'm not going to hit that animal on purpose. Over. I don't want to get lost in my molecules.
Good one. Yeah, I think something has to do with morals. I was doing the dishes this morning, early this morning when I got up, and I was like, you know, I have a lot of problems with my mom right now. There's stuff going on, but she's passed over, but I have just a lot of issues that I'm uncovering some stuff that's unpleasant. But I was like, at least she instilled morals in me. I mean, you know, because I'm a giver. I'm very involved in my community, and I do a lot of stuff, and for other people, and I just like I thank God, because things could have been much different, a lot different, and she instilled that in me, no matter what happened. And a lot of it wasn't her fault. So she was led by somebody that was a psychopath. So, but anyway, but she instilled that with me because she's a human being, and she wanted her kid to, be a good person. So I was brought up with morals and honor. Honor was very important to her and my father as well. They weren't together, but they instilled that very early in me as a baby almost. Like, you don't do that with family or friends or close friends. You just don't do any, well, because we're Quakers as well. So the nonviolent part was easy, but I just really prayed and I blessed, I took a moment and I blessed my mother, I was like, wow, it could have been much different. Thank you. Over.
Going back to what you were saying, Nanette, Conversations says that it's our first nature to be unconditionally loving. And it's our second nature to display that, basically. But I wanted to ask you, Linda, at a young age, knowing your purpose, I would imagine that you felt quite isolated as a child, in that there were not many of your ilk.
Oh, totally. Yeah. I felt completely alone, completely isolated, and did for most of my life. It's only been, I think it's really only been since about 2008 that I found a community back in Michigan, but even then, I would have to say it's only been the last few years, maybe last 8 years max, where I felt like I could freely talk about my memories, my experience, and that there were a handful of people that would not think I was loony.
Yeah. Finding Conversations obviously was a blessing, and us here as a group.
Oh, absolutely.
And I felt the same. Like, I think I've voiced before how when I read Conversations, I felt totally isolated because there was no one I could discuss with. That was for many years, actually. So I feel blessed that we are together. Over.
Anybody else? Well,
I would just want, oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Go ahead, Joyce.
I just wanted to say I'm probably the newest one, I don't know, in the group. And I missed last week because I was with my family and I drove home to be here in time, and I told my family about this group. And they got it. And I feel the same gratitude Angela and Lynette and Shabana and all of you have expressed. It is a very special group, and I treasure being a new member. And I thank you all for what you give and offering this group present.
We're glad
you're here. Wonderful, Joyce. Thank you.
Definitely glad you're here. Let me just read the last 2 paragraphs of chapter 8, because I think that it's really applicable. And hang on, let me turn my video off, because I don't want it to glitch up on me while I'm reading. Okay. You do not, this is God speaking, you do not have to end a relationship in order to change it. Indeed, you cannot end a relationship, but can only alter it. You always have a relationship with everyone. The question is not whether you have a relationship, but what kind of a relationship do you have? Your answer to this question will affect your life forever, and indeed could truly change the world. I just wanted to read that because it seems so applicable to what we've been talking about. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Where'd you go, Laura?
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. It's exactly
Oh, there you are.
spot on what I think it's important. Thank you.
And yeah, any of us who have ever been married and then not married, you still have a relationship. It's just not the same relationship as it was. And it's even like when our kids move out of the house and spread their wings, it's still a mother-son relationship that I adore. But it's a little different, you know, because they're not here all the time, you know. So I think that even like with what I was saying about Hitler before I read Conversations with God, so my relationship with Hitler was he's evil, and now my relationship with is, and I think Bima, you said something about this, but he had a mother. You know, he wasn't always an adult. We don't know what pushed him into what happened. So my relationship with Hitler is now different. Oh.
You know, I think what's happening in Korea and the relationships between the North and the South have overshadowed a couple of other relationships that we've gotten to watch this week. And one of the most fascinating to me is the relationship between Trump and Marcone. If you think back to when Trump went to France and we saw the footage of their interactions there and that one handshake that went back and forth, you know. And now we fast forward to Marcone coming here and what we saw of that relationship here. I feel like Marcone understands those two paragraphs that I just read. Like he had a relationship with Trump when they first met, you know, after the elections and all of that. And now he's taken it upon himself to figure out how to have a good working relationship with this person that, you know, 80% of the people on the planet think is a complete whatever. I mean, there's just too many words. But that man came to our country and showed such a change in his attitudes and treatments and responses. Like when Trump is cleaning his collar off, you know, Marcone's just standing there and he's just smiling and you don't see there's no negativity coming out of him. I feel like we're having these things shown to us. That relationship between the North and the South Korean that we just watched. That's amazing stuff. And these are people who are operating out of understanding that it's coming from within them. These men, those three men, all of them, are working from within. I think that's what we've seen. And I think it's just I mean, who could have imagined I'm still blown away by the Koreans. I'm like, really? Is this really happening? I mean, we all dream of it, right? It's like what we've wanted for hundreds of years. But could it really be happening? How beautiful.
Anybody else? Before we wind up, because I don't see much point in starting chapter 9 at this juncture.
Well, I just remember what Neil said. I forget, I watched a video or one of Julian Honduras' videos. I love that he does that. I watch all those that he posts. Do you guys all know Julian Honduras in California? No? Linda, you don't know? I know Annette does.
Yep, he used to be on
Savannah,
book groups, but
he's wonderful. He puts all this stuff on MP3 and on his page. If you just go to his page, he puts all these videos, and I've done that. I've listened to him for years. He's been doing it 3 years now, but it's just wonderful. But in one of those, I don't know if it was Coming for the Storm, something. He has a couple of them on there right now, and then he just added and it doesn't matter. But anyway, Neil says, these people, these haters will tell you what they love. They will tell you. You just sit down with them and you don't have a judgment. You sit down with them and say, what do you love as a Nazi? Or what do you love as a killer, a serial killer? They will tell you for hours. You can talk to a prisoner and they will tell you what to love about it for hours. But you just make sure that when you're doing it, you have no judgment against it. Like if he was an axe murderer or something and he's killed, thousands of people, that you just don't have. You have to be very careful with your expressions, very careful, and the way you respond, because it'll be a much different conversation if you do that. But if you're like Neil, and he does it very well, because he's also, a screenwriter and all that stuff, an actor, but he does that, and you can get information. You can say, how can we get to this person? We know this person is a hater, but let's understand him. What does he love? He's not only loves to kill people. That's not what it's true. So you get to know them and understand them. I think with understanding, we can help people. It's the source of understanding. I think that's the key to all of this, actually. Thank you.
Very good point. Very good point. And that takes an incredible amount of patience. Because I think even with our own families, we can get to places sometimes where it's like, I don't understand why you would have done that. Instead of listening, taking a step back and listening and really hearing what our friends or children are saying to us. And I know the times that I have practiced that, I've been able to understand what my child or family member, whomever, was going through. And I learned more by keeping this shut and these open. So it may not seem like it on this call, but anyway, it is the top of the hour. And I just want to say I really do enjoy, or I've enjoyed this hour because it's been a little different than what we normally do.
Maybe we should incorporate this somehow and do it like a discussion. Because I was thinking about this morning. I was like, and it just happened. Isn't that funny? I was really thinking about that I was going to tell them, and I was going to ask Annette if we have more time for discussion. I swear to God. It was doing the dishes. I had all this stuff doing the dishes in my kitchen. I was like, I really wanted to ask Annette because we have no time to discuss. Usually it's just Linda reading and there's no time. We always put it over to the next one and then I forget. I have to really learn this stuff over and over. So and it just happened. I swear to God, I had that, it wasn't a conversation with God, but I was like thinking, how can I'm just going to politely ask her if we can either incorporate it longer, like half the group is reading it. So if we don't read the full chapter, okay. But then the other half should be discussion. Because I really love this part of it. And this is where I really learn stuff. And we really talk about this stuff in here. So maybe we should throw it around and talk about, like, let's do it for half. Let's read for half. And wherever we are in the chapter, stop and have discussion. And meditation, of course, 2-minute meditation, that's important as well.
No, I think that's a really good idea. because I too can't remember from one week to the next. So at the half hour, we should stop reading and start the discussion.
Can I share just shortly, regarding that? Because that's the way I've been working for years, reading something and being in a circle and deep listening to what is awakened, so we can have that. And I've done that with my kids because I was working with it. I was running a school for kids where we did it every week. And I have been working in rehabilitation for drug addicts and prisoners with this kind of deep listening circles. And what comes up when you don't judge, just listen, is amazing. So I know, and actually now it is the 25th of May 2003, my daughter died. And before she died, for 4 months, she was staying with me because she could be talking to me in that way. So she stayed, and I followed her through all the stages in cancer until her last breath. And she said to me, I stay with you because I can go into my depths with you. Not because you are my mother, but because I can do that. And I can claim to stay because you are my mother. Even she was married and had 3 small kids at that time. But I followed her. She could tell and talk without judging, but staying in my heart with her. So it's a very good training to do that. I'm so grateful that I learned it, that I was practicing this for years, and she was part of my school, so she was also practicing the same thing. So I agree with you, Nanette. You said that. Nanette, it says, I don't know, is that your name, Nanette?
Nanette.
Nanette, yeah, because it is so important that that's my gift, that I have been trained to do that for years, and since many years back. And and I agree to study half an hour and have the sharing, or whatever you call it. I think it's very valuable.
I agree. And
thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for putting in your thoughts on it. Because we used to be real good about stopping at the half hour. And I don't know how we got out of that habit, but let's just go back to the way we used to do it. Read for the first half hour and discuss, and where is appropriate, either at the beginning of the call or at the end of the call, Shavana can do the meditation. All right, everybody. I love you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Love you.
Thank you.
Love you. Bye-bye.
Love you too.
Love everybody. See you next
You
time.
too.
Positive week. Love, love, love.
Love, love, love.
Love.
Love, 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 love. Turn off.